The night I discovered my wife cheating was the night everything I thought I knew about love, marriage, and trust collapsed in a single heartbeat. You've read stories like this on Reddit: cheating wife, divorce, cold revenge. But I never believed I'd become the main character in one of those viral cheating wife stories until that anniversary. For weeks, I'd sensed something off. Samantha, my wife of 17 years, was working late, glued to her phone, growing distant. Our two kids, Oliver and Ella, noticed the tension but said nothing. I held on to hope, planning a surprise dinner for our anniversary. Roast chicken, candlelight, soft music, their favorite dessert. I even dressed up, hoping the old spark could be revived. But as hours ticked by, Samantha's texts changed from "I'm almost home" to "Don't wait up." When the door finally opened at 9:40 p.m., the energy shifted. She strode in sharp suit, makeup flawless, eyes cold as stone, holding a brown envelope. She didn't greet us, just set the envelope on the table and sat down between the kids. "I want a divorce," she announced flatly, as if reading a weather report. My world froze. Oliver's fork hit the floor. Ella blinked back tears. Samantha stared right through me, showing no sign of regret or even anger, just emptiness. My mind raced with questions. Was it really her boss? The late meetings, new lingerie, the secretive messages? The puzzle pieces clicked. The cheating wife cliché wasn't a meme. It was my life. I wanted to shout, demand answers, rage at her betrayal. Instead, I forced myself to stay calm, refusing to break down in front of the kids. "Fine," I said, voice steady but hollow. Inside, my heart crumbled. Samantha rose, collected her bag, and left without looking back. The silence was heavy. Oliver started to cry. Ella stormed out of the room. I sat in that empty kitchen, shame and fury battling inside me. How could she do this? Did our years together mean nothing? Then, beneath the pain, a new emotion surged. Resolve. If Samantha wanted to tear apart our family for a secret life, she would pay for it. I wouldn't be just another cheating husband got dumped story on Reddit. No, this would be different. I would rewrite the script. As the last candle sputtered out, I made a promise to myself. I would make her regret every single lie, every moment of betrayal. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning of my revenge. You want to know how far a betrayed husband will go? Stick around because my story is just getting started. Ever since the night Samantha handed me divorce papers, the walls of our home felt colder and the silence heavier. The truth was out, my wife was cheating, and now every memory seemed poisoned. I'd read Reddit stories about cheating wives and revenge, but nothing prepares you for the real thing. Samantha drifted through the house, barely meeting my eyes. Her phone was always glued to her palm, her smiles reserved for someone else on the other side of a screen. I noticed every detail. Every late night at the office, every giggle at a message she'd never share, every new piece of lingerie that was never for me. Oliver grew distant. Ella started sleeping with the light on. I tried to keep life normal, making pancakes, driving to school, pretending our family wasn't shattering. But trust was dead. Doubt chewed at my insides. How long had Samantha been cheating? Was her affair just with her boss, or were there others? I replayed moments. I'd ignored the perfume that wasn't her scent, work trips that didn't add up, the way she'd vanish for hours. I began scrolling through her social media, combing through our bank records, searching for any sign of the truth. Sometimes I found receipts for places she'd never told me about: hotels, bars, gifts bought but never brought home. One night, desperate for answers, I followed her car after she left for work. My hands trembled as I watched from my car, parked down the block. She met Lucas, her boss, in a trendy restaurant. The way she laughed, touched his hand, looked at him. It was 1,000 times worse than anything I'd imagined. I wanted to burst in, demand answers, but fear for my children and shame held me back. That night I couldn't sleep. The ceiling seemed to press down, suffocating. I thought about confronting her, about telling Oliver and Ella, about blowing up her world the way she'd blown up mine. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. I wanted proof solid, undeniable. This was no longer just about heartbreak. It was about truth and justice. If Reddit had taught me anything, it was to fight smart. My wife's betrayal wouldn't be a secret much longer. I would uncover every lie, even if it destroyed us all. The next step would define who I became, victim or avenger. Ever since I'd seen Samantha and her boss together, my days were fueled by paranoia and bitter determination. I woke up every morning with a single purpose: find proof, get the truth. I started tracking Samantha's movements, saving every suspicious bank notification, cross-referencing her calendar with credit card records. It was like living in one of those wild Reddit cheating wife threads, except it was my life, my family unraveling. She got smarter, hiding messages and erasing call logs, but she slipped up one careless text notification while her phone charged in the kitchen. "Miss you already. No name, just a devil emoji." I screenshotted it and emailed it to myself. The feeling was sickening, but now I had something. The next day, a receipt for an expensive hotel popped up in our shared account. She claimed it was for work meetings, but the dates matched a weekend she was supposed to be at a marketing seminar. Oliver asked why Mom was gone so much. Ella started drawing pictures of our family, always with Mom standing far away. I tried to act normal movie nights, pizza Fridays, helping with homework. But the mask was slipping. The rage and humiliation simmered under the surface. I started venting anonymously on Reddit, desperate for support and stories like mine. The advice was always the same: get evidence, stay smart, protect your kids. I bought a cheap voice recorder and hid it in the car. Samantha talked for hours on the phone with someone named Lucas, laughing, flirting, making plans. My heart broke all over again. I listened again and again until I could barely feel the pain, just numb determination. Every new piece of evidence piled up in a secret folder on my laptop. Screenshots, audio files, receipts, hotel records, phone bill logs. The evidence was clear. My wife was a cheater, and the life I thought I knew was gone. My hands shook as I realized it was finally enough. Enough to confront her, enough to protect my kids, enough to start fighting back. I took a deep breath and opened a new email subject line: "We need to talk." But revenge is never as simple as you imagine. Was I really ready to destroy the person I once loved? Was there any way to win without losing myself in the process? Confronting Samantha was the hardest thing I'd ever done. My hands shook as I waited for her to come home, the folder of evidence heavy in my lap. I imagined every scenario: denial, tears, rage, maybe even violence. When she finally walked in, she acted like nothing had changed, like she hadn't been lying to us all for months. "We need to talk," I said, and the way her eyes flickered told me she knew what was coming. I laid everything on the table: screenshots, receipts, call logs, hotel bills, all proof of her cheating. At first, she tried to play dumb. Then, the mask cracked. "So what?" she spat. "It's over. I stopped loving you years ago. You never noticed because you only cared about your work." Her words cut deeper than I expected. The kids heard the shouting and came into the kitchen, eyes wide with fear. I tried to stay calm for their sake, but anger boiled over. "You destroyed our family for a fling? For a boss who'll dump you the minute things get messy?" Samantha glared, unmoved. "I deserve to be happy," she snapped back. "You trapped me here." The kids started to cry. I pulled them close, wishing I could shield them from every harsh word. "Go to your rooms," I told them. "This isn't your fault." Oliver hesitated, but Ella led him away. The silence that followed was thick with hate and regret. Samantha began packing a bag, refusing to meet my eyes. "I'll send for my things," she muttered. I watched as she walked out, slamming the door behind her. For a moment, I felt empty, like I'd won nothing. The revenge I'd dreamed of felt hollow now that it was real. My kids clung to me, sobbing, their world broken. All I could do was promise them I'd never leave. But as the night dragged on, a single question haunted me. Was I really any better than her now? Or had revenge turned me into something I hated just as much? For days after Samantha left, the house felt emptier than ever. Every sound echoed through the halls, my kids' whispered questions, the hum of the fridge, my own footsteps on the tile. I tried to fill the silence with chores, but nothing covered up the ache of betrayal. Oliver barely spoke, spending hours in his room with headphones on. Ella drew angry, messy pictures and tore them up when she thought I wasn't looking. Their world had crumbled, and I was powerless to fix it. My phone buzzed with messages from Samantha. Demands about splitting assets, schedules for her weekends with the kids, legal threats thinly veiled as friendly reminders. She sent a single apology, if you could call it that, blaming stress and insisting we should both move on. I deleted it without reading twice. I spent sleepless nights reading Reddit stories from other men who'd lived through cheating wives, divorce, and messy custody battles. Their advice was the same: protect your kids, document everything, and never give up your dignity. At work, I struggled to focus. My boss noticed the change and offered sympathy but couldn't hide his concern. My performance reviews slipped. Meanwhile, rumors about Samantha's affair spread through our friend circle like wildfire. People I thought were loyal drifted away, unsure which side to take. Some quietly supported me, others kept their distance. No one really knew what to say. One night, I caught Oliver crying into his pillow. He asked, "Was it my fault? Did I do something wrong?" That broke me. I hugged him tight, promising over and over that he and Ella were innocent. Their mother's choices weren't theirs to carry. I started therapy for all of us, desperate to shield them from the bitterness swallowing our home. But the pain didn't fade. I felt trapped between anger and heartbreak, every day fighting not to lash out. Samantha seemed to move on fast. New photos on social media, nights out with Lucas, pretending nothing was wrong. My kids saw it too. The betrayal was everywhere. How do you rebuild trust when the one person who was supposed to love you turned you into a stranger? Revenge had given me a purpose. Now that it was over, I was left with nothing but questions and the wreckage of everything I'd tried to protect. The weeks after the dust settled were a blur of routines and raw wounds. My life split in two. The old world, where I'd believed in love and family, and the new, where trust was a foreign language and every day felt like survival. The house, once full of laughter, now echoed with emptiness. I focused on the kids, packing lunches, signing permission slips, fake smiles at school events, but the pain lingered. Sometimes I caught Oliver staring blankly at his dinner, or Ella asking if Mom was ever coming back. I never had a good answer. Samantha's presence still haunted us. Every other weekend she'd pick up the kids, acting like nothing had changed. She and Lucas flaunted their new life online vacations, parties, smiling selfies that made me sick. The kids noticed too. Ella grew quieter. Oliver angrier. I fought the urge to check her social media, to compare my misery with their picture-perfect happiness. Reddit threads about cheating wife revenge filled my nights, but their stories offered little comfort. Money became an issue. Lawyers sent bills I couldn't pay. Samantha pushed for more child support, less visitation. Our friends chose sides. Some vanished. Some offered sympathy I didn't want. My job was on the line, my focus shot. The future was a question mark. Still, I had to adapt. I started therapy again, this time for myself. The therapist listened without judgment as I spilled every bitter thought. She challenged me. What do you want now? Not just what you lost. It stopped me cold. I realized I'd been living for revenge, but revenge was empty. I needed something else, something just for me. I forced myself to try new things, signed up for a running club, took Oliver and Ella hiking in the rain, just the three of us. We got lost, laughed, found our way home soaked and muddy. It was the first real joy I'd felt in months. But as I slowly rebuilt, I faced the truth. Moving on wasn't about winning. It was about surviving the wreckage and maybe, one day, finding hope on the other side. Months passed in slow motion. The calendar flipped, but inside I was stuck. My job slipped further, and so did my patience. There were days I barely recognized myself a ghost in my own house, going through the motions while life moved on without me. The anger I once used as fuel turned into something heavier. Exhaustion, bitterness, a dull ache that wouldn't leave. Therapy helped a little, but not enough. Oliver's grades dropped. Ella got in trouble at school for fighting with a friend. I tried to stay strong, but the cracks were everywhere. Our family dinners grew quiet, the table half empty. Some nights, I sat on the porch after the kids were asleep, scrolling through Samantha's new posts. She looked so happy. The comments poured in, "You deserve this. So glad you found your true self." The unfairness of it all threatened to swallow me. Then, one Thursday, my boss called me into his office. I braced for bad news, but instead he offered a lifeline, a temporary assignment in another department. "It's a chance to hit reset," he said. "Get out of your head, try something new." I hesitated, but I took it. The work was hard, unfamiliar, but it forced me to focus on something besides my pain. For the first time in months, I felt a spark, like maybe I wasn't broken beyond repair. At home, I made small changes. I started cooking real dinners again, not just takeout. Signed up Oliver and Ella for weekend classes, music for Ella, robotics for Oliver. I even reached out to an old college friend for coffee. The conversation was awkward, but it reminded me that I wasn't alone. There were still people in my corner. Samantha noticed the shift. She sent texts, checking in on the kids, asking how I was. For the first time, I didn't reply with anger. I kept it civil, brief. The kids were my focus, not her drama. The change felt good. One night, after the kids went to bed, I stood in the kitchen staring at the old wedding photo on the fridge. I took it down, not with rage, but with something like relief. I realized the worst had happened, and I was still here. Letting go wasn't defeat. It was survival. The turning point wasn't about revenge or justice. It was about finally choosing myself, even if that meant starting over from zero. Spring crept in quietly, sunlight warming the cold corners of our battered home. There was no miracle, no moment where all the pain disappeared, but I started noticing change in small things. Oliver's laughter during a board game, Ella's song echoing from the shower, a joke at dinner that actually made us all smile. For the first time, our lives didn't revolve around Samantha's absence or her latest drama. Instead, we were learning to live in the world we had now, not the one we lost. I took my new job assignment seriously, working long hours, but feeling the first flicker of pride in ages. The team noticed. My boss commented on my improvement. At home, weekends became sacred hiking trips, lazy pancake breakfasts, even camping in the backyard when money was tight. There were still tough days, nightmares, custody arguments, the occasional call from Samantha that set Ella off crying or sent Oliver into a silent rage. But we made progress, inch by inch. Samantha's relationship with Lucas grew rocky. Rumors spread of fights and breakups, her perfect social media life cracking at the edges. Sometimes she called, asking to come by, sounding almost lost. I stuck to boundaries, never letting her chaos bleed into our home. My focus was on the kids, on healing, on rebuilding a future that belonged to us. One evening, Ella surprised me by asking if we could invite a few friends for a movie night. Oliver volunteered to cook popcorn. Their laughter filled the living room, chasing out the ghosts of old arguments. For the first time, I realized we weren't just surviving. We were moving forward. Therapy helped too. We learned how to talk about our feelings, how to set boundaries, how to forgive ourselves for what we couldn't control. I made peace with being a single parent. Some days were overwhelming, but I found comfort in the routines we built together. As spring turned to summer, I stood on our porch watching a thunderstorm roll in. The kids danced in the rain, fearless, free. I knew there would always be scars, but there was also hope. Our new beginning wasn't what I'd planned, but maybe, just maybe, it was what we needed. Summer brought more changes than I'd expected. The house, once a battlefield, now pulsed with new rhythms. Oliver made the soccer team, and I cheered from the sidelines, beaming as if the trophy were mine. Ella discovered a love for painting, her canvases splashing color on our walls. Evenings were spent grilling in the backyard or listening to thunderstorms on the porch. There were still moments when grief swept through me without warning. A forgotten photo, a stray text from Samantha, but they came less often, and their sting was duller. Then, unexpectedly, Samantha reached out. She wanted to meet. Her message was cautious, almost apologetic. Against my instincts, I agreed for closure, not for her. We met in a busy cafe, the safety of noise and strangers between us. Samantha looked older, tired. Her voice shook when she spoke. She apologized for the pain she caused, admitting the affair was never worth the cost. Lucas, it turned out, had left her months ago. She was living alone, seeing the kids on weekends, regretting choices she couldn't undo. I listened quietly, letting her words settle like dust. I realized I no longer hated her. There was sadness, but not rage. I thanked her for her honesty, but made it clear the past was over. We'll always be connected because of Oliver and Ella, I said, but I'm moving forward. I hope you can too. Walking home, I felt lighter. The chains of bitterness and revenge that once defined me seemed to slip away. I told the kids about the meeting, answering their questions honestly. They were relieved, hopeful that we could finally stop living in the shadow of old wounds. That night, I looked at our family photos, the ones from better times, and put them back on the mantel. Not as a shrine to what we'd lost, but as proof of what we'd survived. Closure wasn't about forgetting. It was about accepting what happened, forgiving what we could, and finally, letting go. A storm raged outside, but inside, I felt peace for the first time in a long while. The past would always be part of our story, but now, so was hope. Fall settled in, painting our town with gold and crimson. The crisp air brought a kind of energy I hadn't felt in years. For the first time, the pain of the past didn't define every moment. There were new routines. Oliver's weekend soccer games, Ella's art shows, movie nights with popcorn and laughter that didn't feel forced. Our house was finally ours, not a haunted museum to everything we'd lost. There were challenges. Some mornings, I'd wake up haunted by old memories, Samantha's laughter echoing down the hall, the way we once danced in the kitchen. But instead of letting grief swallow me, I started to honor it. Those memories became reminders of how far we'd come. I shared more with the kids about my own struggles, teaching them that being strong meant facing pain, not hiding it. Work picked up. My boss noticed the change, energy, focus, ideas. A promotion was mentioned, the possibility of a fresh start in a new department. I was tempted not for escape, but for the chance to build something new. Friends, old and new, drifted into our lives. Dinners, backyard barbecues, and even a few awkward dates reminded me that I wasn't alone in starting over. Samantha became less of a shadow. Our interactions grew civil, respectful. She worked on herself, to therapy, volunteering, rebuilding trust with the kids, step by step. I admired her effort, even as our paths grew more separate. Oliver and Ella thrived in their own ways, each learning resilience from hardship. I found comfort in small rituals, coffee at sunrise, journaling my thoughts, jogging on leaf-strewn paths. I even began to feel proud of the scars I carried. They were proof that we'd survived. The future wasn't perfect or predictable, but it felt real, something I could shape, not just endure. One evening, as the kids and I watched the stars from our porch, Ella whispered, "Dad, I think we're going to be okay." I believed her. We had come through the fire. The world hadn't ended, just changed. The past would always be there, but the road ahead was finally open, and for the first time, I wanted to see where it might lead. Winter arrived with quiet mornings and early sunsets, a reminder that healing was both slow and unpredictable. I settled into my new role at work, building confidence in my decisions and letting myself believe I deserved a future. The kids adapted too. Oliver's team made the playoffs, and Ella's art was chosen for a school exhibit. We celebrated small victories together, late-night cocoa, inside jokes, snowball fights that ended with us collapsing in laughter. Samantha remained part of our lives, but from a respectful distance. She was careful with her time, never missing a birthday or special event for the kids. Sometimes we talked about co-parenting, discussing routines and sharing news about Oliver and Ella's progress. Our conversations were no longer charged with resentment, but with the shared goal of giving our kids the stability they needed. For the first time in years, I found myself curious about the world outside my own struggles. Friends invited me out for dinner. I hesitated, then agreed, nervous and hopeful. Meeting new people was awkward at first. I stumbled over small talk and dodged questions about my past, but I started to enjoy it. There were laughs, stories, even a spark of interest from someone who saw me not as a wounded man, but as a whole person starting over. I began to forgive myself for the mistakes I'd made, my anger, my obsession with revenge, my fear of moving on. I let go of the idea that closure had to mean erasing the past. Instead, I learned to accept that pain and joy could live side by side. Ella made a painting of our family, all of us smiling under a bright winter sky. She hung it above the mantel, a sign that hope could survive even after heartbreak. On the first snowy night of the year, I walked through the quiet streets, breathing in the cold air, feeling alive in a way I hadn't for a long time. Second chances didn't mean going back. They meant choosing to live again, with gratitude for every lesson learned. My story wasn't defined by betrayal anymore. It was shaped by resilience, love, and the courage to begin again. And as I stood outside, watching the snow fall, I realized this was more than survival. It was the promise of something new. Spring thawed the last traces of winter, filling the world with green and gold. Our story had taken us from heartbreak to hope, through pain, anger, forgiveness, and finally peace. Looking back, I could hardly believe how far we'd come. There were days the wounds felt fresh, memories still sharp enough to sting, but more often, they faded beneath the gentle tide of ordinary joys. Coffee with the kids before school, a sunrise jog, laughter in the kitchen, the warmth of a home rebuilt from ashes. Oliver and Ella thrived in ways I'd only dared hope for. Oliver became a leader on his team, mentoring younger players, his smile a quiet victory over sadness. Ella's art was accepted into a city gallery show, her confidence growing with every brushstroke. Their resilience inspired me. We made new traditions, summer road trips, annual snowman contests, Saturday morning pancakes loaded with whipped cream. Our lives no longer revolved around what we'd lost, but around what we'd built together. Samantha stayed in the picture, a presence both familiar and distant. Our co-parenting became less of a struggle, more a quiet partnership shaped by mutual respect. She apologized again one spring evening as we watched Ella perform at her recital. I told her I'd forgiven her, not because she needed it, but because I did. Letting go was the final act of strength, the one that truly set me free. In time, I found new connections, friends who understood my scars, a community that welcomed my kids and me without judgment. I even began dating cautiously, slowly, discovering that vulnerability didn't have to mean weakness. There was love after loss, if I had the courage to reach for it. On the anniversary of our old life's collapse, the kids and I went to the beach. We built a bonfire, shared stories, and let the waves erase our footprints. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Oliver asked, "Dad, do you ever wish things had turned out differently?" I thought about it. "Sometimes," I admitted. "But if they had, we wouldn't be who we are now, and I'm proud of who we've become." Our story wasn't a fairy tale. It was messy, raw, painfully real. But it was ours. We'd come full circle not to the place we started, but to a place of strength, forgiveness, and hope. And as we watched the last light fade from the sky, I knew the next chapter was ours to write together.